Hey friends, Stephanie here from SKU'd Imaging. Today I'm going to do a tutorial on what I'm doing with these Cobra bracelets or King Cobra bracelets in microcord. I do a 550 core with the microcord over the top of it. I get a lot of questions on not the cow hitch side, but what are you doing on the other side of that bracelet? So I do kind of just what I would call like a double overhand knot and creating a little loop here for that shackle pin to kind of go through. So the materials that I have are just some scrap paracord loops. That just helps me to hold my hardware in place. I technically have two different size shackles here as well. If I were, say, making this for a customer order, if they wanted the smaller shackle, that's going to be the shackle that I use at the top of my jig versus I like to kind of use the bigger one at the bottom, just because this shackle pin has a larger diameter than this one here, and I don't want to make those loops too snug where it's going to be very difficult to get that pin through there. And then I also have about 2.5 feet of 550 cord. This is the color changing cord from Outwood, Tree Frog. I almost said tree hugger, but also appropriate. And then this is just a jig my husband had made for me. So obviously if you have like a nicer built jig than I do, maybe you don't need these little paracord loops, but like I said, if this was the shackle that I'm using for the actual bracelet to stay on the bracelet, I first cow hitch the pin side of this and attach it to the top of my jig up here. And then I would take the core color that I'd be using and cow hitch on the curved or U side of that shackle. And getting that obviously tightened up there, cinched up. And then at the other side, I cow hitch on the U side here because I'm just using this bottom one to have a casting point to create those loops. And then really just kind of my preference, I like to flip the jig upside down to do the knot and the final part of this anchoring. And so I take both strands and come up from the bottom. And obviously you're going to be, getting the sizing, your length right here, but tying this is kind of a little bit tricky. So even if you get the knot on there, you can end up pushing, that length out and making this a little bit longer. I wouldn't make a bracelet this short, but this just for tutorial. So I'm pretty much already creating that loop right there by coming in from the back side of that shackle. But I typically hold the left side, and I'm using the right strand to go around my thumb and back to the other side. And then I do that a second time, but I bring that cord above the first loop, back around again to the back, still keeping it above those ones below. And then I'm just bringing that cord down through the center of both of those loops that I've just done around my thumb. And see how that cord strand comes up and then it comes through here to create that loop. So when you're coming around the second time, you just want to make sure that that cord goes down through that first loop and the second one. And this one really takes a lot of working, because if you get it too loose, obviously that's going to make your core maybe not as tight. This other left strand that we were just holding, that's really just kind of a freestanding cord at that point. So this is actually a slip knot. So I really try to make sure that this knot is as tight as I can possibly get it, but I'm not necessarily cinching it up to that shackle pin super close. So a lot of times I'll get out my tightening tool, which I did not think to have handy for this, but I'm just really just keep, you know, pulling on that bottom loop to tighten up some of the core, pull around those two different strands there to make that whole thing tighter. So this is, I mean, honestly a really big knot, and it's not very tight compared to how I would normally do it, but just for tutorial purposes, that's really what it's going to end up looking like. And I've found in my work so far, I measure from just that, where the paracord ends on the shackle, from that point to the point here of the pin without this shackle length. So I measure in front of the cow hitch on this side and after the cow hitch on this side, and that's my total length. I've kind of found when I'm measuring, say if I'm doing a bracelet that's 6.5 inches around on the inside circumference, I set this length to about 7.5. So I'm finding approximately an inch difference there from starting to the finish outcome there. But I really just kind of play with that a lot, make sure that that core is very tight in there, make sure that this loop or this knot is very, very tight, because if you don't, it's going to cinch up on its own, and the last thing you want to do is have that knot move on you so much that your customer can't actually get the shackle pin through there because that knot gave way. And then once I have that actually tightened and positioned in the length that I want to start out, I snip both of these cords off pretty close. I can take it off the jig. I try not to. So I snip it really, really close here, and then while it's on the jig, a lot of times I just kind of burn and singe and really smooth out that area there and just kind of butt it up to that. That also, if you get a good singe on it, will kind of help from keeping that second cord over here that was just kind of freestanding. It'll keep it from coming through that knot and cinching up on you there as well. But once I get that cut off, I just add that micro cord on there. When I do the micro cord, I flip the jig back over and do it the other way, so I don't have to have my whole setup upside down. But I just knot the two micro cords together if I'm doing two separate colors. If I'm not, then I can just do one solid strand. But if I'm knotting them together to get the two colors, I just hide that knot right up here, and then I start the Cobra weave. Then I do it again with the King Cobra. Again, if I'm doing two colors, I'll have a knot in there, but if not, I don't. And then I just hide that center starting point or that knot right up there underneath that cow hitch on this side. So I hope that's been helpful and that I didn't miss anything, but feel free to comment below if you have any questions, or message me directly, and I can kind of walk you through it or whatever you may need. So I will link the different like resources and stuff, so like where I've gotten cord. I have a discount referral code that you can use if you want to shop at Atwood. I'll kind of make a little bit of a note on the actual hardware where I'm actually finding some of the shackles themselves, because what I'm very particular of is actually pretty hard to find, and it changes all the time. So whatever the link is now may not be the link later. So I probably won't necessarily link the exact place because it changes so often. But anyway, yeah, hope you found this helpful. Give it a thumbs up if you want, subscribe, whatever, all those social things I'm supposed to say. And I hope you have a wonderful day and happy crafting.